In this video, I'm going to show you how I made the most luscious, delicious pumpkin bread ever. Hello, I'm Patty and welcome to my handmade lifestyle. I go by Patty Mac Makes everywhere online. On this channel, you can expect to find all sorts of makes, bakes, and some gardening. Around here, we love living that analog life in this crazy mixed up digital world. And if that sounds like something you also enjoy, then subscribe to the channel today. Like the video and hang out with us because it's fun and you'll learn something. Okay, let's talk about this pumpkin bread. Oh my goodness, is it ever good? It's amazing. I make it every year. The recipe is from Sally of Sally's Baking Addiction. I made a couple of alterations to it. I subbed out the vegetable oil and I used this phenomenal pumpkin oil that I found in my grocery store. I also subbed out the chocolate chips and I used butterscotch chips. I had the butterscotch because I've just made those phenomenal little pumpkin pastries. I'll link to that video up here. If anybody in your life loves Harry Potter, go ahead and make them with the little lightning bolt like I show in the video. If you don't have Potter fans, you can just put any old vent in the top, but if you do the little lightning bolt, it's really special. So this recipe, it's a very heavy batter and it takes a long time to bake, a really long time. So you're going to want to put it into the lowest rack of your oven and you really want to pay attention to it. You want to set that timer for the first interval, which is at like 30 minutes. Don't miss this step. You want to, at 30 minutes, put an aluminum foil tent over top of that bread and then let it continue to bake because it's going to take a while. And if you don't tent it, it's going to burn on the top and that would be a shame. It's like if you're making a turkey, you have to tent the breast of the turkey or it will over brown and overcook. Okay, that's enough chit chat. Let's get into today's recipe. So over here, these are my dry ingredients and that's my flour, my baking soda, and my spices. And back here behind this, you can't see it all that well, but there is my granulated sugar. And for this, we're just going to use regular granulated sugar. This is my brown sugar. This is my milk. These are my 2 eggs at room temperature. I'm using vanilla bean paste for my vanilla. I'll come back to this one. This is my pumpkin and these are the chips. And I used a combination of semi-sweet and butterscotch. I thought that would be fun. The butterscotch with the pumpkin is really good. This uses an oil instead of a butter. And what you would use is something like a vegetable oil. But I happen to have this fancy pumpkin seed oil. I bought this last year. It's been sitting in my cabinet and gosh darn it, I'm going to use it. You don't need to be as fancy as me. I just get a charge out of trying new ingredients. That's just my thing. Okay, so how are we going to make this? Oh, and before we go on, let me say, over here, this is the 5x9 loaf pan, and you can see I've got parchment, and the parchment is hanging out on the sides, and that's so it's easy to lift your bread out of the pan after it's done baking. And I lightly sprayed the pan with baking spray and then I put the paper in. So that's all ready to go. And I've preheated my oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. We want to make sure that we have the lowest rack and the lowest setting. And we're going to place our bread on that low rack. And then when we're about 25 minutes through, we're going to pull it out. We're going to tent the loaf with aluminum foil, and that way it will continue to bake, but it won't over brown. It's the same type of thing you would do with a turkey, because a turkey takes a long time to bake, or a chicken. You're going to tent the breast so that it doesn't overdo while the rest or the inside of the bird is cooking. while we're trying to get the inside of our bread loaf to cook, we don't want to burn the outside. So we're going to use the paddle attachment on my mixer. We're going to put the eggs in and we're going to beat them for about 6 minutes. It's kind of a long beat. And as those come up to a beautiful sunny yellow and they start to have a little bit of a ribbon to them, we are going to do what they call reining in the sugar, which means we just lightly rain the sugar in the side while the mixer is running. And we're just going to let that beat until everything is well incorporated and that sugar is dissolved. Then we're going to add the rest of our wet ingredients. We're going to put in the vanilla, the pumpkin, our oil, and the milk. And we're going to just do one at a time and let each one of those incorporate before we add the next. You don't want to dump everything in at once. You don't want to rush it. Take your time when you're baking and allow everything to incorporate just perfectly. Now that our wet ingredients are well combined, it's time to add the dry ingredients. So we're going to do the dry ingredients in 3 additions, and we're alternating that with the milk. So I do a little bit of dry ingredients, a little bit of milk, I let it mix, and then I repeat the process. Basically, you want to start and end with the dry ingredients. And it's also really important that you scrape down in between additions so that all of the flour gets mixed in to your batter properly. Also, I'm mixing this on low speed. When you're making something like a bread, well, a quick bread like this one, or a cake or something, or cupcakes or muffins, you want to mix the flour portion on low speed. And you only want to mix it until it's combined. That is because we don't want gluten development. We want this to be really tender. Here you can see I'm scraping down those sides. I really can't overemphasize how important it is to do this throughout your baking. It's so important. I actually didn't realize how much stuff I was missing until I got this clear bowl. When I got this glass bowl, it was like, holy mackerel, this really is even more important than I realized. So I can't emphasize this enough. And this is our last addition of flour. We're going to just go ahead and mix that on low until it's just combined. And now we're going to scrape down our sides once again. You can see all that flour that's just collected at the top. It's kind of above the line of where the beater hits. So we're just reincorporating all of that. We're going to go ahead and add our chips. This is a very quick, really more of a fold than a mix. We're just going to cut the mixer on and just like that, turn it off. It'll be all mixed. And then we're going to pour all of that batter into the prepared bread pan. We're going to put that in the oven and we're going to bake it for 30 minutes. At the 30-minute mark, we're going to pull the loaf from the oven. We're going to tent it with aluminum foil and return it. And then we're going to bake it for another 25 minutes. If it's not quite ready, we're going to put it back into the oven and bake another 5 minutes. And we're just going to check it every 5 minutes. So when it's done, we're going to remove it from the oven and we're going to let it sit on a wire rack and we're going to let it cool completely in the pan. So expect for it to sit there for at least a half an hour, 45 minutes. And when it's done, we're going to use that paper, the little dog ears on either side. We're going to then lift our bread out of the pan and put it on a serving dish or a cutting board or however we want to showcase that bread. You can leave it on your counter for 2 to 3 days, or it'll keep in the refrigerator up to 10 days. Whatever you do, make sure that you keep it in some sort of airtight container. You could slip it into a Ziploc bag, or if you have a nice plastic container to keep it in, you could put it in there. This bread is so good. You're not going to want it to go stale. It's beautiful, and let's see how it is. So I'll tell you this. This bread recipe is delicious. It is amazing. I love it. I make it every year. We've already eaten it, okay? It's gone. I shared some with a neighbor, and they proceeded to inhale what I gave them, like in a night, because it was so good. I made that little side dip. Oh man, that is some good stuff. And I'll do another video on that little dip because you're not gonna believe it. It's it's a cream cheese whipped cream. I'll just spill the beans on it here, but I'll show you how I made it in a different video. It deserves its own video. So I don't have video of me like actually trying it for you. You'll just have to trust me when I tell you it's delicious. You can believe me. I would not lie to you. Okay, that's what I've got. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you make this bread, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. Okay, I'll see you in the next video.